Hi, let's talk about Kotlin or OP concepts. So Kotlin is a modern programming language and it introduces object-oriented programming or OP concepts seamlessly. Classes and objects serve as the foundation, allowing developers to encapsulate data and behavior. Constructors initialize objects. Inheritance facilitates code reuse. Properties simplify variable handling. Sealed classes restricts inheritance, and enums offer a concise way to define set of related constants. So these features collectively enhance code organization and expressiveness in Kotlin applications. Classes and objects. In Kotlin, classes act as blueprints for objects. An object in turn is a specific instance of a class embodying the attributes such as name and age and behaviors defined by the class. For example, if we have a class called parrot, creating an object like parrot2 equals parrot means that parrot2 is now an instance of the parrot class binding data and functions together in a unified unit. So the class declaration consists of the class name, the class header, specifying its type parameters or the primary constructor, and the class body is surrounded by curly braces. Both the header and the body are optional, and if the class has no body, the curly braces can be omitted. A constructor in Kotlin is frequently employed to initialize class members. If no constructor is explicitly defined, every Kotlin class automatically has a default constructor. Since primary constructors in Kotlin cannot include logic directly, initialization logic is often placed within init blocks. So this is a summary of primary and secondary constructors and their rules. So in the primary constructor, there's no body, the init block acts as the body, and in secondary constructors, it has a body, and the body of the constructor is called after the init block. The primary constructor in Kotlin is a crucial part of the class header, positioned after the class name and optional type parameters. For instance, look at the code example here. It is important to note that inside the primary constructor, direct logic cannot be written. To address this limitation and incorporate initialization logic, init blocks are employed in Kotlin. Furthermore, a Kotlin class is restricted to having a single primary constructor, but it can include any number of init blocks and secondary constructors, providing flexibility for additional logic and initialization needs. Inheritance in Kotlin involves deriving classes from an existing class, where child classes inherit properties and implementations from the parent class. This allows for the avoidance of redundant code redefinition, promoting code reuse. However, it is important to note that by default, Kotlin classes are marked as final, meaning they cannot be inherited. To enable inheritance, the open keyword is used to explicitly mark a class as open, as illustrated by this example. So this is an example of inheritance. This code defines three classes: animal, dog, and cat. In this version, default values are assigned to properties to ensure they are not left uninitialized. Function bodies are left empty, so you can fill them with the actual implementation logic. The animal class is included, and you can add common properties and methods shared among all animals to it. So you can see how to override methods and understand what is happening in inheritance. See how you can use the animal class with the dog and cat classes in programming. Interfaces in programming act as a blueprint for classes, and they define a set of methods and properties that classes must implement. And interfaces provide a way to ensure consistency and shared functionality across different classes without specifying the actual implementation details. Properties in programming can be understood as values or behaviors encapsulated within an object of a class. They represent characteristics or attributes of an object and can be modified or mutable or remain constant, that means immutable. Properties are declared using keywords like val for read-only properties or var for mutable properties, providing a way to interact with and manage data associated with the objects in a structured manner. Sealed classes in programming are a way to organize class hierarchies in a restricted manner, often used when a value can belong to only a limited set of types. Unlike regular classes, sealed classes and their subclasses are defined in the same file. They are particularly useful for scenarios where you want to represent a defined set of related types. For example, you might use a sealed class like app_error with subclasses such as network error, database error, and permission error to model and handle different types of errors in an application. Sealed classes help create a clear and exhaustive structure for handling specific and predefined scenarios. We will talk more about sealed classes in the next video. Enums, short for enumerations, are a feature in programming that represent a fixed set of values or constants. They are particularly useful for defining situations that do not change, encapsulating related values into a single type. For example, enum classes can be employed to create a set of constants, making code more readable and expressive by providing a clear and concise way to represent and work with specific unchanging values. So that's all for the video of the Kotlin OOP concepts. Thank you.